project. And we're going to do a stack, two stackable stretch bracelets out of this beautiful colorway. And if you are new to making stretch bracelets and are not really into making them or have never made them before, or maybe you're making them and they're not really turning out right, maybe this will give you some few tips and tricks on how to make some real pro finish stretch bracelets. And for the rest of us, a refresher and just a relaxing project for today. So let's get into it, shall we, my friends? Happy Friday, Frolic Fun Day. You know, I need to like figure out like a jingle. I don't know. Friday, Frolic Fun Day. I don't know. I got to figure out a jingle for that. I'll come up. First of all, let's talk about our beads. I am using all 6mm rondelles today. All 6mm. When I come in your bag, I just want to have a little dangle. I love dangles on my bracelets, as you know. And these, I do offer them in my store, friends. They're 18 karat gold plated over 304 stainless steel. And I have 3 of those. We're going to put 3 of those. I think this is going to look cute. I haven't done it yet, but we'll see. We're going to put 3 of those. Also pulled from my stash here. An 8mm 24 gauge jump ring in gold. Okay, and that's thin enough to where I'm going to feed my little leaf dangles, and then 2 of my bronze 11-0 seed beads. That's what we're going to do to make our dangle, and we're actually going to end up doing that first because you never know. Well, we're going to do it about halfway. Well, I'm going to make it first, but we're going to feed it on about halfway through our bracelet. So we'll make that first. And my friends, let me get the rest of my materials out with you. All you're going to need is some good cutters or scissors for your tools, and just a pair of chain nodes if you want to do a jump ring little dangle like I'm doing. And then, of course, a bead stopper I highly recommend for our stretch bracelets, friends. And a beading needle. And if you do not have a beading needle, I pulled out a piece of my beading wire. Any beading wire, friends, I cut like a 4-inch piece. I fold it in half, put a nice crease in it here. Pro tip here, pro tip coming your way. Because we don't always have to have the needles, right? And sometimes, you know, we break them, or if we just don't have them, you don't have to spend on them if you don't want to. So I just go like that with my chain nose, put a nice crease in that. And then this will serve as my needle. And that's going to help my stretch bracelet be zoom fast. And then, of course, bead stopper. And then I'm going to use Stretch Magic today in clear, my friends. And I am working with the 0.5mm. And it is in clear, 0.5mm on the Stretch Magic today. And we will double it. That is what we're working with. So let's get started, shall we? This is the first thing I do. Step 1 is I take a piece, the end, right off my spool here. Okay? And I am just going to take the end of it and kind of hold it right there between my thumb. Okay? And then I'm going to go around 2.5 times. So there's 1, and then, oops, I'm getting caught here. Let's start over again. Okay, so I'm holding it there. And just right at the very end of the tail. 1, and then I go around a second time, and then about half, or a little less than half, right there. And then I cut it. And before I take that off, the reason I do it that way is because we're going to double to make it nice and secure and last longer. And we want to have plenty to tie off our surgeon's knots. So really, this little section right here, and then this part right here certainly makes 3 times around the wrist. So I usually go around 2.5 times to make it 3 times. The length 3 times, right? So that's my first step. The second step is, of course, my friends, quiz time. What is it, friends? I know you know it. Stretch. Pre-stretching. Pre-stretching is bar none. I have said this over and again, but I have not done stretch bracelets in so long on the channel. Let's just have a little fun refresher. Pre-stretching, the reason we pre-stretch our entire length of cord back and forth a couple of times, just like this. We're not going to tug too hard. We're just literally running it through our fingers and just tugging on it lightly. That is pre-stretching, and the reason we do that is so that our stretch bracelets, when they are done, they do not have any gaps where you can see your cording through your beads, and it helps them last longer. So you'll have less chance of breakage for a couple of years until they need to be redone again. So pre-stretching is our number 1 important thing. We do not skip this step. And this is how we get them to look like a pro finish stretch bracelets. So I'm all done. I've gone 3-4 times back and forth across my cording, and now I have quite a bit more here than I started with, right? Okay. And so now what I'm going to do is I am going to, now if you have a beading needle that's a collapsible, okay, you'll go ahead and take one of your tails, feed it through your beading needle right here, okay? If not, then you can do it at the end like I do, right? I'm going to today because I just have my makeshift needle. So the first thing then I will do is marry up my ends, give myself a nice tail, and I'll just pop a bead stopper on here. And the reason that I do that, friends, is because why do we want to go through all this and fuss with worrying about our beads falling off? We don't. So a bead stopper is our friend. So really for stretch, just to recap, friends, for stretch bracelets, I am very redundant the way that I do them. I have mastered my technique on stretch after many, many years of practice and trial and error. And I do find that my beading needle, my stretch, and my bead stopper are the most important things I need on my mat to make them go really fast. So the first thing I do want to do though, friends, is we've got that ready to go. Oops, I forgot to put my little needle. So if you make a makeshift needle like me, just fold it. It's folded in half, so we'll feed the cording right down the center, just like that. And now we are ready to go. Okay, I'm gonna put that up here for just a second. Let me zoom you in a smidge. And oops, sorry guys. And let me show you what I'm doing here with this. So I have a 8mm jump ring in 24 gauge, as I mentioned. And what I'm gonna do, guys, is I am going to feed on my cute little leaf charms here. And I'll link these in the store. I'll link these. I think I might have these jump rings. I'll link them in the store if I have them. If you guys don't have any. I might have some beading needles. I'll check. If I have any stretch materials in my store right now, friends, I'll link them in the video for you today. So I've got my first leaf on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of put my jump ring down and feed on that little 11-0, little bronze 11-0 there. See if I can get that to feed on there. I think I can get it on there. Yep, I got it on there. Okay, and so that's laying on top of this leaf, right? And now I am gonna put another leaf on. So I'm gonna feed that on, and then I'm gonna put one more little seed bead on here on the top of that leaf. There we go. And then that last little leaf, string that right on there. And now I'm gonna go ahead and close up my jump ring with my chain nose. Would kind of help it to kind of dangle like that. So that ought to be cute. That's all done. Let me put this away and let's get to it. So all I'm gonna do, guys, is really pretty repetitively pick up my beads in the pattern that I laid out. So I started with the clear, and the reason I did start with the clear is because my cording is clear, and that first or last bead you feed on will hide your knot, right? So go ahead and feed on my jump ring and let that go down. Now, obviously, it does not matter at what point that we put it on. I just kind of wanted it like second to the end because it'll be centered however I, put it on my wrist. So there's no particular pattern, but what I did was I did 3 of my runs, and now I've gone ahead and fed that on there. And again, it does not matter when you do a multicolor like this because there's really no perfect center, right? So it's pretty much just perfect symmetry of the full colorway. But I did do that right there. So I just went ahead and fed that jump ring down, and now I will just continue with my last 2 runs to pick up the remaining of my beads, get them fed on here. And then we will finish this up and tie our surgeon's knots. Let me show you what I do to know that I am done with my length, right? Because everybody's will be a little different, okay? So I still have my bead stopper out, and I still have my beading needle, my makeshift beading needle, okay? So here's what I do. I will basically put this around, okay? And here's what you want. Do you see, and I'm not tugging, I'm just laying it around my wrist. I'm not pulling. And notice, on that bead stopper and where this purple bead is, you notice how they are almost identically across from each other perfectly? They're almost overlapping, but not quite. That's what you want. If not that, then at least one more bead, but not one less. And the reason we do that is because as soon as we start to tie our surgeon's knots right now and straighten up, tighten up that bracelet, we're gonna lose a little length, right? So we really want to make sure that we are always at least ending and starting our beads where they are across from each other, or at least one extra. But what we don't want is we wouldn't have wanted this, where you can clearly see that this bead is way below this bead, right? What I'm going to do is I am going to remove my bead stopper, and I'm going to remove my beading needle. And I am going to make sure when I do that, I'm holding on to that loop. Let me get you in really good here so you can see what I'm doing. Pro tips again. Warning, warning. Pro tips coming your way. I make sure when I remove that beading needle that I'm putting my finger in that loop. I cannot lose that loop. That's important right now, right? And now over here, I've got my loop on my finger, and then there's the tails, right? Now what I'm going to do is I am going to separate these tails and take just one. It doesn't matter which one. And I am going to put it through the center of that loop. I'm going to grab the other tail, and I'm going to marry them together and hold them. And now this is what you have. Can you see there where I've got my loop over one of my tails? Okay? Now what we're going to do, friends, is lay your bracelet down. Again, keep a hold to your tails now. And we're going to move all of our beads down to where they're coming up, meeting this loop and pulling out the slack. So we want to move our beads towards the loop. So I'm going to push them down. And then I'm just going to keep going like that. And so I'm wanting to get rid of all that slack. So we just keep pushing the beads down to where they're going to come up to that loop. And now I pulled out the rest of my slack. And now I can move my loop down to where they are meeting each other. And all the slack is out of my bracelet. Okay? So I'm going to move you out just a little bit. And now we're going to do our surgeon's knots. Finish it up. So we do want to be mindful that we are staying right there, okay, when we're doing our knots. So we will separate our tails, and we will do an overhand knot, right, and pull that right side through. Now I'm going to take that left tail and put it going through from the front to the back. And notice right here that I've got that triple knot. There's your surgeon's knot, okay? And then I'm going to let gravity get involved. Gravity is my friend in stretch bracelets. As I pull this gently so that that kind of, that knot is swinging, in the direction it wants to. That's why we lift it off the mat a little bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull. Now do not pull too tight. Let's just pull that a little bit, okay, because that's our first knot. We don't want to break our cording. We will now add a little more strength, a little more tugging for every knot moving forward. And we'll do the 5-knot rule for my triple knots. So the surgeon's knot 5-knot rule is what I do. So our first knot is in place. I am now going to take, and I'm going to crisscross underneath. Just crisscross and bring each of those tails to the opposite side. And again, staying right there where I just tied that knot, stay within that 2 bead section, right there. Okay, so I crisscrossed underneath. Now I'm back to the top, and we'll do it again. We're gonna do an overhand knot, pulling the right cord through the loop. And now this left cord, we're gonna push it to the back through the loop. And now we have that triple knot right there. There's our surgeon's knot. And again, I'm gonna pull let it come off the mat, and make sure it stayed right in that section. And now pull even a little tighter. So there's 2, and now we again crisscross underneath our tails, bringing them to the opposite sides, and back up to the top, staying in that section of beads, and we'll do knot number 3. And pull, and then crisscross underneath. Oopsie, that one wants to get away from me. I gotta force that right where I need it to be, that cord there. And then another knot. So we go through the right side, and then from the front to the back on the left side, and pull it off the mat, and pull a little tighter. And last one, crisscross underneath, back to the top, and overhand knot on the right, on the left. That cord goes from the front to the back through that loop. There is our surgeon's knot right there. And then we'll pull it off the mat and tie that whichever way it wants to go. And now we'll go ahead and give that a nice tie. Now, friends, if you want to use any of your glue or adhesives, any adhesives that you like to use for your stretch, you can absolutely. I don't glue my knots. I still don't. Many people do, but I don't, because I'm good. My surgeon knot 5-knot rule that I just showed you, particularly that crisscross underneath, in combination with my pre-stretching, my bracelets are good. My bracelets are good, friends. So now notice where my knot is right there, nice chunky knot. I'm gonna kind of tug on that a little bit so you can see my big knot right there. And now I'm gonna go pretty close, about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of that knot, okay? And we'll go ahead and trim, okay? And now, without really even trying, it's just about wanting to disappear in that clear bead. But if I wanna make the knot disappear out of the gate, I'll just simply grab this other side of the bead, pull it a smidge. Just pull it a smidge. Get it inside, there it is. Now that knot went inside that bead. You cannot see any knot anywhere. And that's how that looks, by the way. That's really cute. I really like that. I really like that. I like it with the little seed beads. That turned out pretty cute. And there we go. There are our stretch bracelets. Yay! I hope you